It's Saturday morning, the 25th of April. We still have a lot of severe weather. Now, today, a rare moderate risk has been issued for parts of Oklahoma. Still expecting a lot of severe weather on Sunday, and still probably a pretty big day on Monday, too, encompassing much of Illinois. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. We do see a break from this later on in the work week, but for the next couple of days, still a lot of severe weather. Let's talk about it. Today, a somewhat rare moderate risk for severe weather has been issued for a very select area of Oklahoma with a large area of severe thunderstorm potential running all the way from Nebraska straight down to the Gulf, Louisiana, parts of Texas. But we'll focus in a little bit more on this higher risk area here. So, a moderate risk, a level 4 out of the 5 possible categories for severe weather intensity and coverage. But the level 3, which is the enhanced area, still covers a lot of ground too. So if you're looking for cities, this is Tulsa here. This is Stillwater, Oklahoma City. The enhanced risk goes all the way down. This is the Red River right here into the northern counties of Texas. And then this level 4 here is in an area just southeast of Oklahoma City, which is right there. Not a lot of major cities there that I can think of. I'm sure there are some population centers for sure, but they are under the gun for that highest level of intensity. As far as breaking this down by category, tornado risk is at 10%. Nothing to shake a stick at here. And that runs from just east of Oklahoma City right down into northern Texas, stopping just short of Dallas. Dallas is in the 5% tornado risk, which is the brown. So basically, from an area southeast of I-44, basically, is the highest risk of tornado potential that does extend into northern parts of Texas. Tornado intensity, this is a new significance scale that the Storm Prediction Center has issued. Like it so far. What it really just tells you is, yes, the probability of the tornado is still in the color. And then this tells you if a tornado does occur, what intensity are they expecting? So this is on the lower end. There are 3 levels of this, where you can see right here. This is intensity 1 right here. And the percentages, if we just look back over history, really strongly favor EF0 and EF1 tornadoes, weaker ones. But there's a significant chance of an EF2, at least measurable, and not impossible to get anything bigger than that, obviously. But this is just all weather is a probability exercise anyway. And basically, a lot of times these don't coincide. Like this one does pretty much. But what this is saying is even that, when you have the green over here, which is the lowest risk of potential, there's still a little overlap right here where even though the risk is low, the intensity level is still being rated as significant enough. So that's how you interpret that. This is a pretty straightforward day where the probabilities and the intensities match pretty well. They don't always, but in this case they do. And the hail risk is at maximized, really 45% chance of big hail down there tucked away in southeast portions of Oklahoma, south of a line from Oklahoma City to Fort Smith, pretty much. And the wind intensity is not as impressive, but still pretty good. 30% chance of severe wind. And by the way, a severe wind is a 59 mile per hour gust or higher, and on the hail, it was 1 inch or more. And there probably will be some 2-inch hailstones in that area today. As far as Nadocast is concerned, they are painting a 5% risk in that basic same area, maybe a little bit bigger than what the SPC had for their highest risk. And you're getting the picture here. It's southeast Oklahoma, maybe a sliver of northern Texas for today. And CSU, again, same picture. They'll take the tornado risk at 5%, a little bit more north into Oklahoma. Same with the hail. And the wind risk is actually maximized right around the Red River Valley. Take a look at some slides here. This is the HRRR 500 millibar flow. We still have this to contend with, but what's happening today is we have a little subtle shortwave and some upper level wind energy kind of overlaying this area, which is ripe with boundaries. And it's also an area which, except for the thunderstorm development overnight, has not been scoured at all by a front. This low pressure system up here is keeping all those bottled up. Nothing is able to dive southward and stabilize the air, really. So it's only individual lines of storms that can overnight affect the stability and put down boundaries, which are very important as well. The bulk shear is adequate in this area for severe weather. If it's shaded, basically a color, that means it's probably good enough. The instability is building up greatly. You can see that there's an influence right here of all the thunderstorm activity that occurred in this area. So you can see there's a very sharp line right here. And along this line is where people are thinking that a lot of this activity, as it develops in this area, will slide kind of an east-southeast way and produce some really big supercells with large hail, damaging winds, and yes, that tornado risk certainly measurable. If you look at storm relative helicity, this is interesting. This is the lowest level spin that storms need to get a tornado. So a rotating storm is not necessarily a tornadic storm. A supercell is, by definition, a rotating cell, and it lasts long enough to produce large hail, and it has two pretty established gust fronts usually. Now, the tornado probabilities are a little more subtle, and they rely on a very, very small change in how the low-level winds behave. So that's why I put this up. And notice that you're going to get high values of this on the cool or stable side of the boundary I just showed you. So I'm not sure. I think there probably will be some overlap here, but a lot of this might be boundary related and maybe enough to get to grant extra boost to any supercell that can find that boundary. So let's look for them. Here's 4 o'clock's radars. It's also gonna, if you see any snail trails or gray areas, that's when the mid-level helicity values are enough to say this thing is rotating. Nothing at 4. And then we skip ahead to 7, and the supercells have initiated these right here, probably along a boundary, probably the best chance of them being tornadic. They'll also be fed by an increasing low-level wind field that almost always happens in this scenario. Then by 10, they organize and start moving right toward the Red River. And the snail trails, those little gray areas, like right there is one. So it'll have to be watched with great intensity today. A moderate risk is something that the Storm Prediction Center doesn't issue too much. Now on Sunday, we'll turn the page, and this is again pretty much what has been forecast. This one's a little more challenging, I think, because the features are a little more subtle. But we have an enhanced risk basically for central and eastern Kansas leaking over into western parts of Missouri. And that is, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that. There we go. There's Kansas City and Topeka right there. There's Wichita and all those cities along I-70, Manhattan, Salina, those areas all under a level 3 out of 5 today. And notice that this extends down along the dry line for Sunday. So this is a lot more questionable. You folks in southwest Missouri, we're in this slight risk, which is the yellow, primarily for whatever happens later that night and comes on in. Remember, these are 24-hour forecasts. So when this says Sunday up here, this means 7 a.m. Sunday to 7 a.m. Monday. So, like, for example, a lot of the supercells that I think will develop here will spend the evening and toward midnight get around here. And then some of those may kind of go on and leak on over into western Missouri. The tornado risk right now is at its highest right along I-70, basically, from, well, not quite Topeka, but the 10% runs, I think that's maybe Manhattan, Kansas, all the way back along I-70, basically, about, 50, 60 miles either side of that, with a 5% tornado risk surrounding that. That does get down to Wichita. So I do plan on chasing Sunday, and at least if I don't see anything that drives me here, I will certainly go here. Pretty quick trip up to Kansas City, and I could probably get there fairly fast tomorrow. And then if we look at the tornado intensity, again, it's only the first level, and level 1. But notice that here's a good example. So the highest probability of a tornado is here. This is a lower probability down here, but they're still saying, yeah, if one occurs, though, we're going to rank it in this lowest intensity level here. So it's much more conditional, but if something does happen, it's going to be just as bad, potentially, as something that happens here. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, on the severe hail, yeah, it's all about these storms that are forecast to develop there, along with the wind. Again, conditional threats down the dry line, and more of a threat later on into western Missouri. If we take a look at Colorado State University's probabilities on this, this is a learning machine that takes current data, compares it to previous occurrences that look a lot like this, and comes up with an assessment based on history and based on what's currently being forecast. So they put the tornado maximum right on the Kansas-Oklahoma border, a little more south than the SPC. They have it up here, too small to draw. Anyway, hail risk pretty high, wind risk not so much. And this is typical this time of year. You get higher hail risk because the upper level temperatures are colder, The wind risk takes a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder to get that one excited, but that starts to happen more in May, June, and into the summer. Then finally we go to Monday, another chase day. I can see myself going right down I-70 after Sunday is done and getting over here to around the St. Louis area. But again, this is a large level 3 enhanced, is what it's called, that stretches from southeast Iowa, maybe even southern Wisconsin, almost all of Illinois, right down into western Missouri, almost to Memphis. So this is a pretty large area of enhanced risk. I do want to show you CSU's model on this. This was a little bit worse yesterday, but they're still looking at a 15% tornado risk from central Illinois down into northeast Arkansas. So that is a very, very, it's pretty high actually. The hail risk goes up to 45% from St. Louis north to about Springfield, Illinois. With the wind risk kicking in a little bit, that tells me that an organized squall line will develop, and that's where your wind risks this time of year really start to ramp up. If we look at the 500 millibar flow, it occurs to me I didn't do that for Sunday, sorry. But this is Mondays. This is a strong shortwave right here with a lot of mid-level energy. That's the colors are wind speeds. So this is a textbook example of a severe weather outbreak right out ahead of that. They have now pulled the trigger, the SPC, on a Tuesday outlook, which includes Little Rock, Memphis, just almost down to Jackson, Mississippi, over to Huntsville perhaps. So this whole thing kind of sagging southward with time. By the way, this is probably the last significant day for a while. CSU does have the highest probabilities right in that area, pretty much mirroring what the SPC has put in. And then Tuesday's 500 millibar flow is subtle but there. So we would definitely want to watch this area on the south side of the stronger jet stream. And on Wednesday, there's still a little oomph in this, not a whole lot. This whole thing just sinks southward a little bit more, and then the probabilities drop off considerably beyond Wednesday. So for the next 7 days, that's a pretty good summary of supercell probabilities. But some good news in the future. Now, May 2nd through the 8th, still pretty high and shifted more to the east than previous looks at this. So Texas still probably the highest probabilities. But this has settled down quite a bit. This tells me there's a lot of stable air forecast over this weekly period here, and that we're getting return flow on average up over the high plains, bringing the severe risk possibly more north than it might have been here in previous days this spring. Thanks for watching today's edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. This is published every day after the morning Storm Prediction Center update. Also, remember to check that site off on day one because they update it fairly frequently. If you like this video, please like it. Also, you can subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.